everybody, it's Rob Seaver, Leads Council Executive Director. I'm here with our fourth edition of On Air, and this week I'm super excited because I'm bringing somebody that actually has a direct connect to my role as Executive Director at Leads Council. I'm bringing you Michael Ferree. I'm talking about the former Leads Council Director and now somebody who's running one of the biggest industry events in the industry. Mike, thank you for joining me, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks, man. I feel like I need to be coming out like in a boxing, like that introduction got me pumped up.
I
I
almost
love it.
said former Boy Scout, and of
Yeah, yeah.
course I
Oh
had
my
no idea.
God. I feel like I should be waving to people as
You
as I
should,
come in.
you absolutely should. Industry celebrity for sure. So Mike,
Oh,
look, hey, now that we've got that awesome introduction out of the way, tell me a little bit, like at the 50,000 foot level, like I said, when we were practicing earlier, nobody kind of stumbles into lead gen, although I think my case, I could probably say I stumbled through JT Benton into this thing. But how did you get involved in lead gen? And then just take me through, one of those little evolutionary journeys of from then to here.
yeah. I mean, I've been on all sides of the table with lead gen. I've been a buyer and a seller and a service provider, sort of all over. But my first entrance into lead gen was as a lead buyer, and at the time I applied. I can't remember the exact specific, but I had applied for a job. As the analytics manager for a mortgage company and insurance company that was buying hundreds of leads a day, and it was run by a young guy. And I came in. He's like, hey, have you ever worked with leads? I was like, of course I have. Of course I've. And at the time I worked at a small graphic design marketing company, and we would get web leads, and I would send it to our one sales guy, or I would call it myself. And I was like, yeah, of course I know leads and all this sort. He's like, okay. And so he hired me, and he put me in, and I swear I had no idea what was happening. Like I was we were doing hundreds of leads a day. We had about 30, different vendors, and I got just thrown to the fire, but it was great. It was a great experience. I mean, quickly learned so much about leads and the industry. And this was, I guess, 2006 or 2005 or so,
Wow.
sort of in the mortgage heyday. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience.
So you hop into this world, very similar to mine. I remember Paul Wu from University of Phoenix days when I was originally with LeadQual, and Paul gave me an interview call, and he's like, "Hey, how much do you know about lead generation?" I said, "Man, dude, that is in my DNA, right?" and,
Exactly.
and he's like, "How much do you know about buying and selling?" And I was like, "Absolutely nothing." And I went from expert to industry novice within seconds. And
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
one of the things was, I started getting just tons of calls from all these lead sellers, right? And
Mhm.
they were all saying the same exact thing. Hey, we have the best leads. They're all coming from SEO and search. And you quickly realize that that's not necessarily the case, and
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
where,
I'm
it,
5+ years in this thing, still learning. So, as and that's without even delving into the vertical side of it. This is just lead gen. So,
yeah.
so now you've come into the industry. I know that, from my time of picking up the relationship with you, you were already knee deep in what you were doing with Leads Council. You were working for call center, or not call center, but a company that ran that type of organization. So help me understand, what's that transition, and then where are you now?
Yeah, so, well, if we start back, just taking it back as a lead buyer, I started writing a blog called Lead Critic, because the goal was, I was like, this is insane. First of all, what I'm going through right now, all these people saying the same thing, having to spend thousands of dollars to just find out that the company was not being honest or truthful in what they're really doing. So I tried to start a blog and just writing. It was an anonymous blog, and I just started writing about all my experiences and all this sort of stuff. Nobody knew who I was. Became popular, and eventually people figured out it was me. But over my career, I also went to the other side of the table, ran a lead gen company called Zip Search, ran all their marketing for a little while, worked for a digital marketing agency, did the same thing, went to the call center side in the middle. But all between those times, LeadsCon was started by Jay Weintraub in 2008. We had done an event in 2007 called Leads 2007, trying to bring the industry together. Jay started LeadsCon 2008, and around that time started, he also started the Leads Council
Hmm.
with Dave Wangle, who was at Targus Info at the time. Now it's New Star. Did that for they ran it for about a year, and then they came and asked me to take it over and then and did the Leads Council. But I only share that because it all sort of comes around full circle with just the passion of trying to help lead buyers and people that are really trying to leverage each other within Legion, the ecosystem, to really try to navigate it more successfully. Because I knew what I was going through back then, and even on the sell side, because that has its own challenges for guys that are honest and doing the right thing. It has some challenges, and so Leads Council for many years was about bringing best practices to the industry, and still is. And you guys, I mean, it's amazing what Leads Council has been doing over the last 5 years, and we can talk about that later. But um, yeah, it's been really a strange thing because of my initial experiences as a lead buyer, how it's sort of evolved into this passion for really trying to help companies navigate it and be successful. Because I think the lead gen ecosystem, and there's other ecosystems, but the one that I know, the lead gen ecosystem, is a really unique opportunity for companies to be wildly successful by leveraging the expertise of other people. I mean, um, as much as brands want to do it on their own, they can't always. They need to leverage experts in marketing or call services or data validate. All these different tools that come around and really come together. And so, that's sort of been the now sort of life mission to just kind of continue to help companies be successful as best I can.
You are a true Boy Scout. I hear you.
Yeah.
Carrying flag for the
I was
industry.
a
I love it.
I was a Royal Ranger as a
Royal
kid.
Ranger, I was as well. I think it was tied to church or something, but at
Yeah,
the end of the day, I had the little necktie thing
yeah,
that I got beat up for several times in school. I stopped wearing it after a
exactly.
while.
Yeah.
So now we're up to current or in the last year or so, and you've done something pretty big, something pretty ballsy actually. I remember talking to JT Benton, which we have a co-friendship with, and he's just like, that Mike Ferree, man, he just, when he sets his mind on something, there aren't walls that can stop him. And speaking of walls, right behind you on the wall is Lead Generation World. Tell me a little bit about that because that's where you are today, right?
Yeah, I mean, y- yeah, it is kind of crazy, and it is true. I mean, when I think of, and I think everybody should really do this, is really to focus on something that you want to do, and go ahead and do it, and don't put up excuses on why you can't, because there's a million reasons why you can't do it. Um, but yeah, lead generation world is really an extension of all those just different evolution of trying to help companies either through the Leads Council, through the Buyer Summit at one point at LeadsCon, and now it's really just about trying to bring back an industry that's by the industry for the industry, and that's affordable. I think a lot of shows out there are becoming so expensive that even the biggest brands and have a hard time justifying going to these shows. I mean, as a lead buyer, it's different than a lead seller. A lead seller can go and go, I'm going to generate business, and there's going to be a net return on that investment to attend this conference. Brands and lead buyers are going for education generally and finding new partners. And it's still hard for them, even the biggest ones, to go to their finance and go, hey, I'm going to go to Las Vegas, or I'm going to go here for 4 or 5 days, and it's going to cost $1,500 for a pass. It's going to cost $1,000 for a plane ticket. It's going to cost 500, and they go, whoa, this becomes hard now. Now boil that down to even the mortgage guy that's got, maybe 10 loan officers, or the small insurance agent. This is like a significant fee. So, one of the things is, with my focus on buyers, is really just trying to make it affordable. So bringing a conference around that really focuses on content, that focuses on the buyers, and that's affordable is really my goal.
I mean, buyers, you probably have said it no fewer than 50 times in the few minutes that we've been started. And I know just from talking to you before in the past, this show, when you were originally talking about, I'm putting on this show, and before we even knew what that was going to look like, buyers were always at the epicenter. They were the focus for you. And mention going back to saying, you've said it now 50 times. Why is the buyer so critical? Where in your mind do you see that this is why we need to center around them?
I mean, I think two things. The simple question is that if we don't have successful lead buyers or brands in the industry that understand how to leverage lead generation, whether that's, once they purchase a lead, what do they do with those leads and how they manage it to close? If they don't know what they're doing, we don't really have anything to build off on. Okay, so we need to have lead buyers that are mature, that understand best practices, and that understand all the tools available to them for us to really grow. There is that, but it goes back to being a lead buyer as well, and understanding the challenges and difficulties that they went through or that I went through at that time. And then on the sales side, I remember, we were generating leads and we'd have one client call up and go, man, these leads are horrible. These are the worst leads I've ever purchased. And you're like, oh, man, okay, I don't understand because this guy over here is freaking loving the leads and he's doing awesome. But when you get on the phone call with him, which I, as a marketing guy, I'd always get thrown in with the sales guy. The sales guys would come in here and talk to these guys about what's going on with the leads, and I would take the brunt of the call. And we initially ask, okay, well, what do you do when you get the lead? And sometimes you'd often find out that the guys that were calling the leads horrible were not quite up to par with their best practices.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that's the case all the time. Certainly there's quality issues that occur and all that sort of stuff, but oftentimes there was a lead buyer that just didn't have the lead management system in place, didn't have the processes in place. So it was hard. I just find it really important for lead buyers to really have the tools in place for this industry to grow. Um, Real quick funny story though, and I kind of with this effort I sometimes feel like I'm a fly hitting a window trying to get out,
The
and I just
screen,
keep
the
hitting it, bing,
screen,
bing.
yeah.
Yeah, because there's, back in the lead buying days, I started writing Lead Critic, and then I started a forum called the Lead Buyer Network.
Uh,
And as a forum, I was like, okay, if I create this forum, then the buyers can come in here, and I'll just let lead buyers come in. We could talk about everything. We can tell people who's bad, who's good, and all this sort of stuff. I swear to God, not I think I maybe had 10 lead buyers join this thing.
yeah.
And I'm like, why are it's so hard to get these guys to participate in anything? And I'm really trying, to help these guys out because I'm in the same boat. But it was really, really hard. It turned into Lead Buyer Network turned into this like affiliate data buying, like the seediest of seediest like networks where people were selling and buying and selling data. And I'm just like, the intent is always to help the lead buyer, but sometimes it sort of goes off into another direction. But
Yeah,
hopefully it
no
doesn't.
doubt. I will tell you from my angle, I really didn't get the connection with the value of the buyer early on. Most of who was paying my bills were the lead generators. They were the sellers in the industry, the big companies, and so I remember somebody, Nick Hedges, founded Velocify, and
Well,
so
he
respected.
was the CEO, but he didn't found it. But he
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, okay, right. But really respected in the industry. And he pulled me aside one evening during a board event, I think, and he just said, Rob, whatever
Yeah.
the English accent was, he said, look, you're never going to put this in motion like you want to see it put in motion until you get the buyers at the table. You have to have that balance. And I have to be honest with you, we immediately put a focus on bringing more buyers to the table, and immediately the whole mission, the whole evolution, the whole trajectory of the council took off as an introduction to those buyers to our ecosystem. And so, from a personal standpoint, I absolutely understand that. But ultimately, what it boiled down to was they're the customer. And
Yeah.
we have to be able to listen to the customer. We have to also help the customer understand what is good for them. Like in your case, you got on the phone with these buyers, and these buyers were saying, hey, look, these are crappy leads. But they really didn't understand how to engage those leads or what the expectation should be on those leads. So there is a complete responsibility on both sides of the fence to help the other side thrive. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely understand that. So, you've put together lead generation world. I keep trying to let's get into that because, like, quite honestly, it's exciting to sit back and watch something from nothing get created. Somebody with a vision, as you talked about earlier, about, you have to go for your dreams. You have to work. It's going to knock you in the face several times, but at the end of the day, it should be worth it. And now we have the first lead generation world in the books. I've talked to many, many people, and I think you have as well. Sure, you probably have found 50 things to beat yourself up over, but I got to be honest with you, I didn't hear any of those, right? And it was exciting to be part of that because there was an energy that I hadn't felt before. And so, you've got lead generation world. I think you started it for the reasons that you've been talking about, to bring an ecosystem and networking together, to put something in place where people can not only be able to share ideas, but actually learn from one another. So, help me understand, did I miss on anything about the purpose of lead generation world and where you see it and where you see it wanting to go?
Yeah, I mean it's a community, and that's the way I look at it. And I think this is a community event. I'm not an event guy. That was the first event I've ever put on in my life for the most part. More than 20 people. Um, and it's really just about bringing the community together to really find tools and opportunities for them to grow. And I think that's always going to be the basis and mission of lead generation world, and how that evolves, I don't know, but it's really about what are the needs and what do those guys need to get together to continue to grow. So I mean, we're gonna continue to focus and do different things to bring more buyers there. In fact, we're gonna provide a ton of we're going to make sure that there's a certain amount of buyers there. We're going to cap the show in January at 1,200 people. We're going to guarantee at least 400 buyers there. If we get to 800 tickets and there's not enough, then we're just not going to sell anymore until we get more buyers. And that's just how it's going to be. And I don't really care if there's 3,000 people or 800 people at the show. It's not my mission to make the biggest event in the world. It's about creating an environment that is a community, to bringing them together, and that sort of thing. So we're going to continue to try to focus on good content for those guys and everybody, and create opportunities for them to network and do all the things that are, the things you expect out of a conference. But I think doing it from a point of view that is a part of the industry, is I think what the differentiator is for us.
Yeah, I mean, I travel many shows a year. I mean, I get the what I will call privilege of being able to experience an event coordinator's vision to for final, and I always walk away with all kinds of things from each event. But I have to admit, as many as I've been to over 50 something year experience, that was a very different feel from the minute I got there in Denver. It was very intimate. It felt good. It felt like it had arms around me. So I certainly appreciate you putting something like that together and allowing us to experience that.
Yeah.
That was great.
I think
Um,
one of the things is
Go
like
ahead.
not being an event person, sorry, is like we try to do things that we just come up with. Whether it's like, conferences don't do that. Well, screw it. Let's try something.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
put tables and things in different areas, and if that's going to bring more people together, then let's do that. I mean, let's forget about the traditional format of a conference for a moment and just do it. And let's not also have the main objective to be the biggest and thing in the world. Let's just try to create the most quality. It goes back to Legion, frankly. It's one of the big cliche things that lead generators always say. It's not quantity over quality, right? It's quality over quantity. And I think that's the same thing, for conferences to some extent. I think they can get too big. I think they can get too expensive. I think Vegas can get overplayed. Everyone's going to Vegas, and I think when you have it somewhere else, I think that's more conducive of different an atmosphere and just different overall. But I could be completely wrong. So
Well,
we'll
I
we'll
mean,
see.
I don't know. I mean, tons of people love going to Vegas, as you know. I mean,
Yeah. Oh
obviously
yeah.
it's a
I love it.
destination
Yeah.
capital, but what I can say is I think that people do appreciate something different, and so I felt that in abundance there. So
Yeah. Cool.
it's amazing. I don't know how many minutes we are into this thing, but we haven't mentioned COVID,
Yeah.
and you know, you held your show in January.
So lucky. Yeah.
And what we know now is it probably, was back in December, this thing was worldwide at some level, right? But we didn't know, and we didn't know what we didn't know. But now here we are in May, and this thing has slapped the hell out of everybody. And probably nobody has felt the impact more than event planners, people who have put on shows, much like Lead Generation World. You had the benefit, and I don't know benefit or not is the way I want to position it, but you had a show in January where you didn't have to have emergency plans of going boom, 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 boom. Now here we are 4 or 5 months later. What has that started to do for you as somebody who runs, a premier event for the industry, knowing, and we'll talk about, some of the upcoming events that you have here in a few minutes, but knowing that, you plan to have another event next January. And so, like, how has this immediately refocused the attention of where you were 3 months ago coming out of Lead Generation World in Denver to now in May planning for those events?
Yeah, I mean, we got really, really lucky, and I feel for all the events that have had to move and scramble and do all these things, and I feel bad for them, and I've even seen companies sort of revolt against, different shows, and I feel, the whole situation, it really
Hmm.
sucks.
Yeah.
And whether you're an event coordinator or you're for a company or an event, whatever it is, it's been a mess, and I hope that we can get past this and get things back to normal. And I don't think this is the new normal, like people like to say, I think it's the normal for now, but I think we're going to get back to business and get things, moving along. But for us, yeah, we got lucky. We had our event in January. We've got event in London in October, which is right there in that gray area. Not too sure what the heck's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think we'll know more in another month on what's going to happen with the London show. I think we're good in January, but we're looking at virtual options as well. But I don't think that's a substitute. I think that's an option. I don't think it's a direct. You can't say, well, you paid X amount of dollars to come to Denver for a in-person show, and that's just going to transfer over to a virtual show. No, I don't think so. And so I'm just hoping, to be honest with you, Rob, that this just all goes away. Like
Yeah.
that this,
As we all
this
are. Yeah.
happens and we get back to some sense of normal. I know that's maybe a little naive, and I think there's some things we have to definitely plan for. And but it's such a moving target, like
Yeah.
right now.
I mean, I think as humans, we really want the optimistic view, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy, especially in today's world, to crawl up into that pessimist, woe is me, the world, the sky is falling type thing. I think that's an easy thing to get into.
Yeah.
But I think that as humans, we really hope for the best, though, and I think that those words echo that. You know, uh, COVID aside, and you mentioned, the London show, so I want to move into that very quickly. Why was it important for you as you created Lead Generation World, obviously as an event inside the United States to handle the needs here? Why was it important for you to seek somewhere, especially like in first year, somewhere like London? It had to have triggered something, right? And you saw a need or something?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a little bit of crazy there involved, maybe even
To echo the
stupidity.
words of the great philosopher J.T. Benton.
Yeah. Um, but I had a lot of conversations with companies there, and I was getting so much response for the UK and then Europe with regards to lead gen, even more than here in the US, because there's a lot of shows that are top of funnel, maybe Affiliate Summit or Digimarcon or whatever, these ad tech, not anymore, but top of funnel stuff, but nothing that really goes through the full funnel and talks about not only generating buying leads, but also how to close leads. And the UK, I think, is a real opportunity because they look like we did. At least I'm talking from an ecosystem standpoint.
Mhm.
5 to 7 years ago, where there was a lot of lack of trust and transparency, and the advent of Jornaya and Active Prospect and detect fraud detection systems like Anora or Fraud Logic, all these things have forced us to be more transparent, and that's sort of lacking there to some extent. And then LeadsCon, the shows like conferences really helped bring people together. There's that same opportunity there in the UK and Europe for the same thing, and I saw that, and I'm like, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's put it out there and make it happen. And we're getting a lot of positive response up until this COVID thing, which is sort of just put the brakes on everything. But they're really excited about, bringing the industry together, and I just want to help do that. It's the same mission. It's really the same thing, just a different area.
I mean, we're in a global economy. The world of lead generation doesn't have a border, obviously. From the council standpoint, we focused primarily on the U.S., mainly because of the legislation and regulation that impact the local lead generation space. But in general, I mean, every one of our partners has an international presence, I would imagine. So I think it's
Yeah.
relevant.
And not only maybe they don't now, but they want one, right? There's, the U.S. market, you could argue, is maybe saturated, and there's Europe, and then, geez, there's South America. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for performance marketers, to take what they've done here in the U.S. and apply it immediately, improving the situation in like for example, in the UK, there's not a lot of lead management systems. I mean, like buyers they're using Salesforce and then putting some plugins on Salesforce, which is
Mhm.
okay, but it's not Velocify, it's not Incelerate, it's not, all these other tools. There's a company there called Contact State that's really trying to help push transparency, very much like a Jornaya product, but they're in the infancy. So like, these types of things, these tools could be applied over there immediately to help improve that industry, and provide more transparency, and then subsequently that from that comes growth and all this sort of stuff.
I mean, if you attend an affiliate summit show, there's an international presence there. I mean, a huge international presence. So I think it's smart. So, uh, you know, continuing on with the things that you're doing for lead generation world, I know that you felt it was important that with COVID and just, the crazy that's going on in the industry, you felt that there was a need that you needed to fill something in there. And so Lead Generation Week, I
Yeah.
remember you texting or calling, I forget what it was, and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing, would you participate? And of course, we're there for you. And so now we're there though. I mean, you've launched a little bit of the app already. So help me understand, what is this? Why did you feel it was necessary, and how are people going to get plugged into this thing?
Yeah, I was sitting there and I'm like, man, all these, conferences are being canceled. We're all at home. There's a ton of content out there. There's tons of podcasts and webinars and all these things taking place. And I think it's awesome. But I was thinking, man, I feel my old sales guy, person. So I was looking and going, man, I would go to these shows and this is how I would create a lot of my business. And I was like, I need to try to create something. What if I use our app, to allow people to come in and start networking on a consolidated application versus, all over the place on LinkedIn and just doing different things? How about we bring everybody together on one app and see what happens? Just provide that tool. And if people want to use it and join, great. It's not a real profitable venture for us. It's more about just really trying to provide a tool in a consolidated fashion for the industry to get together. And if it helps, I would be more than ecstatic. If it doesn't, then I go, I tried. But what we're doing for Lead Generation Week is we've got our industry app, our event app, where people can log in, they create profiles, and they have a whole community forum of different topics, and they can interact and they can message each other. They could even create virtual meetups and hangouts. In fact, we're doing a virtual happy hour this Thursday. We're going to have trivia. We're going to do lead gen trivia. And we'll probably do it next week too. So depending on when this airs, and the winner gets a free pass to Legion World Denver in January.
Yeah.
So I mean, it'll be fun and exciting, and try to come up with some good questions around the industry and regulations and all that kind of stuff to have some fun with. But um, they can do virtual meetups, and then we'll have all our Legion week. We'll have a number of sessions each day, like 2 or 3 sessions each day that'll stream right live right into the app or on their desktop, and they can watch it, ask questions. And like I said, it's really just just trying to help these sales guys and these people connect with other individuals in a consolidated fashion. And I'm going to keep the app open until June, frankly, indefinitely. If people still feel it's a good tool, we'll keep it open another month. But at some point it'll have to end. But
Well, I remember like prior to Legion World in Denver this year, caught me off guard because I started seeing these posts, show up in my social feeds, and I had not honestly even opened the app at that point because typically they don't really bring any value to me, or if they
yeah,
do, they bring even anti-value, like, hey, Leads Council Executive Director, I want to get a hold of you, and they have no idea who I am. They're just trying to book. But
yeah,
I saw something very different with this app in the sense that it embodied all of those social platforms that everybody else is already plugged into. So it didn't require you to really create another footprint. It took advantage of existing footprints that are out there, and I just saw how viral some of this stuff was getting. And so, I'm a fan of the app for sure, and I'm a fan of how it actually created that community before the event ever even happened. So I thought that was a success on that.
yeah.
Um,
It's a good app. Everybody loved it. And I'm just happy we selected it as what we use. Obviously, it's not proprietary to us. But
well,
it's
even to
definitely.
your, I'll give you another pat on the back. I've actually used that app at other shows, and
Yeah.
so I didn't get the same
Oh,
out of it. So I
yeah.
mean, I think it's with any technology, it still requires a lot of ingredients in it for it to be successful, and somehow that seems to have moved the needle
Yeah.
on
I mean,
that.
we try to
So
be active. I mean, I try to be active, not just in the app, but LinkedIn and social and
it's a
with
lot
the
of
com-
work.
with the community. It is a lot of work, but that's what we do. I mean, this is what we like. This is what I like to do, and these are all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guys
we
like
enjoy it
you and
for sure. Yeah.
different companies that I want to talk with. So it works out, and that's why I think for us, it's like it works because we're we're industry guys, and so just it is what it is.
Something you mentioned, I don't want to just gloss over it, but something you
Yeah,
mentioned about this app that was not in place in January was there's a desktop version of it now, right? So
yeah,
I can sit at my home office where I'm now, being held captive, and I actually can, instead of worried about it being on my little thing, I can actually have it up and running on my desktop, right?
yeah. Because that was the one complaint, and I went to them. I was like, "Listen, you guys got to figure something out here, because it's fine on a mobile app, but really, if you're really wanting to take advantage of everything, getting it on your desktop and being able to access everything in the same form and fashion is what we want." And they did that, and they've got it out. So now there's a desktop application that basically has every single feature in there, and they could be able to stream the sessions live onto their desktop. They can access a community board and all that sort of stuff. So it's cool.
I kind of want to just move away from that just a little bit and get more focused on you, since this is your podcast. And I think I have a good sense of why you do what you do, but you know, you go even deeper than some of the people that I've ever seen, in the sense that you brought your wife to Legion. Well, she became part of this, right? This is
Yeah.
this is in your DNA, right? I mean, what does this mean to you? Like, not just the show, but in general, the industry, and how does this fit into Mike Ferree's world? Because seems to be something where you live, breathe, eat, sleep, all of it, all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, would be lying if I didn't say she's cheap labor, but um, but
Oh,
no,
geez,
yeah,
we're gonna hear that
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, but no, we work from home, obviously, and she helps. And Nicole helps with we also do recruiting, LGW jobs, because we had so many people coming to us back and forth on both sides, going, "Hey, I'm either looking for a job, or I'm looking to hire somebody, and we just have the network to put people together. And so she helps out with that. And having her at the show. In fact, my daughter was going to be at the show to help out. She's 17. She'll probably come to the next one and help out. But you know, I don't know what to say other than it is it's what we do. And I think at the core, this is a community. And I have this weird perception of lead gen industry as a community and people really trying to help each other out. And it's family, and it's just more than just selling leads. It's getting to know people and having relationships and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, just and I've made this comment to you before, this looks good on you. I mean, I've known you in different iterations along the last 5 or 6 years, and I've got to be honest with you, and this has no reflection of who you were before, but it is a definite reflection of who you are today. Um, how humble you are, how supporting you are. I mean, these are things that I absolutely feel when I'm engaged with you. And I just feel like this has been much more than just a show or much more than just a business model for you. This has been something that it's connected somewhere deep. And I think that people feel that. I've heard that from other people, but it does look good on you, brother. It
Well, I
does.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. I mean, I can't say I'm doing anything other than what's in front of me, and this is
Yeah.
like what I'm doing, and this is what I would like to do. And I'm just lucky enough to be able to do something that I enjoy, and working with people like you and the group and leads count, all the, I enjoy it. So thank God.
I think that's a great segue because I told you that I wanted to just squeeze in, and we mentioned it briefly at the very beginning. You are connected in the DNA of Leads Council, and quite honestly, there's no escaping it. The footprint and fingerprints are there. You know, help me understand. You've already given us a little journey of why Leads Council came to be or how it came to be, but you got involved. You ran this thing like you were the only one. There wasn't a board of directors. You had to make something out of nothing. You kept going with it. And so give me a little bit of breakdown of Leads Council in the eyes of Mike Ferree. You talked about where we're going and the growth you've witnessed also, but you've been very adamant from minute one, like just the minute this thing starts coming together and you have a show, the council then all of a sudden plugged in, almost as if you left a receptacle for it,
Oh, 100%.
intentionally. And so
100%.
help me
Leads
understand
council
a
is
little
very important to this industry. And if there's, if every company should be a part of the leads council. I'm not just saying that as a advertisement for you, but if you're passionate about this industry and seeing it grow in a meaningful way, you need to be a part of the leads council. You also need to go to these industry conferences, LeadsCon including, and be a part of the industry. But at its core, I think leads council is the driver and catalyst for seeing it grow in a meaningful way. I mean, providing best practices, what you guys are doing with standards now, all the stuff that you guys. I mean, I love seeing what's happened in the last 5 years. I think, and when I left and we created the board and I sat on it for a couple of years and then removed myself because it had been 6 years of leads council. It's time for Mike Free to get away and let other people do something. Man,
I
it's
remember the day you announced it. I'm leaving.
yeah,
I
it was
gotta go.
the time was right.
Yeah.
Going back to your question though, I mean, Jay Weintraub and Dave Wingle founded Leads Council with the intent of bringing an industry association where people can really come together alongside of the show, the conference, and just continue to promote best practices. And early on, we had the Leader Awards, and we try to recognize companies that are doing the right thing. We would do a lot of webinars and best practices, and can just continue that on. But yeah, there was a time where it just became, I can't do this on my own. First of all, I shouldn't do this on my own. This isn't a one-man industry that has one person's voice. That's just not how it should be, or it is. And so talked to Greg Gragg, and he was looking at doing something. I said, Greg, why don't we come together, come to Leads Council, let's put a board together, and see where it goes from there. So he said, let's do it. and he started to put the, we started to put the board together, and then it just, it's gone. It's so great to see where the Leads Council started and where it is today, because it could have easily stayed stagnant and maybe even just disappeared off into the distance, because it was getting to that point where it was about ready to just, that ship was about ready to sail, and it
I remember
decided,
my first 2 years.
yeah, exactly. It was tough, but now, man, I think it's just well-oiled, primed machine right now, and it's just, I think it's doing all the right things at this
Well,
point
I
in time.
mean,
So
and
it's
we're
cool.
certainly getting better, and
Yeah,
I'm plugging into the things that are helping us get better, like lead generation world, and some of the other things. But I appreciate the kind words, because I have felt at times like I'm on an island, and you know what that feeling is because you were on that same island sometimes alone. I do have the pleasure and the benefit, though, of having such a strong board of directors, which continually grows and evolves and becomes stronger with the organization. And so it's been certainly fun for me. I mean, I remember I did a podcast with you, I think last week or last month, and you had asked me the question about, Leads Council and I think what it meant to me. And I mean, I told you, this is something very different. I've done air traffic control, I've done marketing, I've ran several companies, and I fired people, hired people. This has been absolutely the most rewarding professional experience that I can ever remember. And it's all as a result of, I think, a lot of the things that are the DNA and fundamentals of lead generation world in you. The industry, the people, the people can move, they, shift from this company to this company, but they pretty much stay in place. And they drive from here most of it, right? And I've been in too many industries where it's all been here, and it doesn't feel good to be part of that. You feel like a number or a part of the cog. Here in this industry, I think it's much more where you become part of the ecosystem, and people accept that, and you become a contributor. And I love that. I love that feeling.
yeah,
So we've lowered our membership down at the silver rate to $500 a year or $42 a month. It's absolutely moving the needle. We have new members growing almost daily. And
yeah.
that's something that's super exciting. I know you appreciate that, because I know you could have gone weeks, if not months, before somebody'd say, I do, and
Oh yeah.
so,
Oh,
yeah,
100%. And we had it, back then it was a different, we would let, not to, we would let buyers join for free to some
sure,
extent.
for sure, yes.
But we weren't doing all the things that we didn't have the operations that you have going on now. You guys are really, providing content, doing I mean, you got committees going. I mean, like, it needs to have financial support, and then now there's also, on that flip side, there's actually a value, that's a return on
Number one.
investment too, which,
Yeah.
like, you could argue back then there maybe wasn't that, right? Sure, we would do some webinars, and we would do some content, we do some networking, we did the buyer summit, but at the end of the day, now people are getting, I think, a really good return on investment when they're partying, and at the end of the day too, they're supporting the industry, and this is about improving it. And you guys have a mission about, providing those opportunities to continue to improve the industry from a regulatory standpoint and best practices standpoint. So now, these guys, listen, was it, you said $500
Yeah. $42
for,
a month.
yeah, for a year? I mean, it's a no-brainer. And you guys are giving out discounts left and right too for shows. I mean, it's almost, you get paid back, don't you?
Well, I definitely can show a complete ROI
Yeah,
with the investment, but I mean, in general, we have that mission of protecting consumers through best
yeah,
practices and standards. I think at the end of the day, we're all consumers. We all are. We all have this device right here ringing, with our request or without our request. And so, as we continue to build those standards and they're adopted and embraced by this industry, it only as a consumer benefits us as well. And so, I truly buy into that.
yeah. How
And,
many members do you have now?
well, we're well over 500 members now, and that, in general is a milestone for us, because when I first started, the numbers were all over the place. I had to
Yeah,
beg people. I mean, I remember, Joey Liner, I called him up and he's like, "Hey brother, love to, but hey, I'm gonna sit this one out," and now here we are where, he was our president of the
Yeah.
organization for, 2 years. And so it's all a testament to just the efforts and the acceptance and the willingness of people to get in and roll their sleeves up, and people like you helping out. So thank you for letting me take your podcast and hijack it a little bit for the council. I only did it because of your connection, but
No, 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 100%. And in fact, I'm thinking out loud here, but and I know at Lead Generation World we did like a little mixer thing, but man, I feel like we need to like come together and like throw like a legit like party or something like that, and get all the members to come
I'm all
and do
for it.
like a leads council only though. Like if we can get a bunch of these members like to show up and do something really beneficial to them for them to get them together that's exclusive, I would love
They've been
to help.
asking. And so I think we're now starting to get into a position where we can do these things. And so love
Yeah.
the idea, brother. I mean, I know that you and I have been talking and that you've agreed to sponsor a new, and I'm going to roll it out on this for the last couple of minutes as just a teaser of what we're coming up with. But people, you have identified that there is a need in the industry to help connect dots between employer and candidate. And that's a service that you guys do. And so the council has also recognized that, but at a different level. And I think it's a good pairing out there with what you're doing and what we're going to roll out in the next, I would say, 7 to 10 days, where we're going to have a robust jobs board where employers can come and list jobs, and we're going to help connect dots there. And when people need more of a boutique, service, you can step in and help really vet out those people and help find the right connection. And so I think the ecosystem is going to be great. I can't thank you enough for being, willing to help fund and participate in getting this thing off the ground. So I certainly appreciate your efforts in helping that. So, in
Yeah.
general, man, dude, look, I'm right at the end of your hour. I don't want to take much of your
What?
time.
You're gonna cut us off? We can't keep talking?
We can keep talking.
What
I
else do we
just
have to do?
don't know if our filters will allow us to continue the conversation at some point. But look, man, hey, look, I will turn it back over to you and plug Lead Gen World or any other thing you want to plug. I certainly have time. I don't schedule any time after these things, so
Yeah.
I do want to get this thing edited down and up and running though. So that's going to be
Yeah.
a mission of mine as soon as we quit.
Nah, just post it. Don't know editing. Nobody needs to edit this stuff. But yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the
I
day,
almost, just so you know, I almost spilt this at some point when I opened it. I dropped it, and you almost knocked your mic down. So at some point,
yeah,
I was hoping for some great moment that we could live off of.
yeah.
AC burnt bacon on the last one and had to rip off his smoke alarm. So,
Well, listen, we can get real controversial if you want to. You want to get
oh my.
controversial?
Well, we have the ability to edit at any time. So you shoot. Let me know where you want to
No,
go with
no,
this.
it's all good. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if anybody wants to reach out to me, they absolutely can. I can't always provide a lot of great information. Some people call me up and go, "Hey, do you know?" I was like, "Your guess is
Yeah.
as good as mine." But at the end of the day, I do like talking shop. And if anybody has questions as a buyer or a seller, and they just want to like, "Hey, let's call Mike Ferree up and see what he has to say." It may not be the best advice, but if you want to like, talk and vent, run some ideas or talk lead gen, I'm available, and
What's the
I
best way
love
to
to
get a
do it.
hold of you?
You can just email me at mike@leadgenerationworld.com. I'm always on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn has become, a significant tool for me and communicating and just, all that sort of stuff. And so you can reach out to me there, but email is good.
You
Um,
actually have the date for Lead Generation World 2021. Is that correct?
Heck yeah, I wish I could remember it off the top of my head. I
Yeah,
think it's
I
I
need to
think it's
get better at my questions, my pre-interview questions.
yeah. No, I think it's January, is it 17th, 18th, and 19th? It's MLK
It's
again.
on your website though. People can go to your website
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
It's
see
on
the
yeah.
2021. Yeah, we'll
It's on the
plug
website.
that.
And we're gonna have
Leadgenerationworld.com. Okay.
yeah, yeah, lead generation. And we're gonna have registration probably open at the end of May.
Oh wow.
Um, and like I said, we try to make it affordable. So registration is 495. And it's going to be limited. I hope we sell out, but we're not going to sell any more than 1,200 passes. So it's good to get in early. I think January is relatively safe for us to assume that a show is going to take place, but if there is any, something crazy, this thing continues to go, or there's a resurgence of this COVID thing, then we'll refund all the money and
Yeah, I know you've
let
made
you
that
go
commitment as
on your
well.
way. I mean, we understand that this is an investment to go to a conference, and it's I would feel personally horrible to not give you money back if the show wasn't able, and you could use that to grow your business,
Yeah.
and so um, listen, we can always go bankrupt.
Well,
But we
you
want to make
started
sure
from
the
nothing. You
yeah,
might
right.
as well
Yeah,
end with
exactly.
nothing. You know
Started
what
from
I'm
nothing, might as well get back to nothing. So, no, anyway, yeah, so we got, there's a lot of stuff coming on. Hopefully we're not, being too, spammy in all our info and stuff we're trying to do. But at the end of the day, we're really just trying to provide tools for the industry to connect. And if it doesn't work, that's our answer not to do it again. So,
And I think people will tell you if you start getting a little much. I mean,
yeah,
one thing that the lead gen in space is not shy of is opinion. So I will tell
yeah,
you that people do have the ability to give their opinion,
I love
especially
it.
if
I
they
love
don't
it.
like something.
Yeah, I love it though. You're absolutely right, and I think it's great. I think it's good that we have individuals that want to share thought leadership so willingly. That because that wasn't always like that.
Right,
I
right.
mean, there was a time where guys were like, I don't know if I can go on this session and really talk about this. This is like our secrets, and at the end of the day, there's very few, secret sauce moments. There are optimization, and I think it's really more about the work you put into those things versus I know this secret trick with Google AdWords, or whatever it is. It is what it is, but it's about the time commitment companies put into it that make them experts.
Yeah.
So sharing that, I mean, someone could teach me how to or show me how to build this house, right? I'm not gonna freaking build this
With the
house.
exception of an occasional, like, hey, look, we're working with somebody where this might have some impact from a stock standpoint or
Oh,
something.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
I understand those types of things, but by and large, even those companies and even the people from those companies, they feel like they can get up in front of this audience and at least talk openly about the general nature of what the question is.
yeah,
And we have found that. I mean, I love sitting around our board of directors, 29 companies, right? 29 individual personalities, 29 reasons not to be collaborative. And
right.
yet, and
Yeah,
yet they take that hat off and they sit down and hammer through the hard decisions. And
yeah.
so for me, man, I have never seen that. I've
That's
never
awesome.
been part of that.
Yeah,
And
and now you guys are doing the series every is it every Thursday?
yeah, the webinar series, that's been great because I have
Yeah.
been begging for help for the years, I mean, I've been hoping that somebody, and now all of a sudden the top companies in the industry are filling up my calendar of saying, I want on that one, I want on May 7th, I want to, I mean, and that has been, I mean, it's been super rewarding for me, super rewarding.
Yeah.
I've been excited to sit down as just an observer and
Hmm.
listen to some of this stuff. I'm learning more than I've ever learned. And so, I encourage people. It's every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. And, one of the things that, I think that you were alluding to is the council is becoming a hub. And we have these spokes and people can come to us and figure out, like, we had a new guy with Lead Rilla, Kobe Hastings. I'm going to be doing a podcast with him because he came to me out of the blue several months ago and said, look, I've been doing some Facebook ads. I'm thinking about getting into this lead gen game. I don't know, but I want to do it right. And somebody just kind of recommended him to the council. Immediately, what I did was I started connecting him, started putting him in touch with those lead generation leaders who could help guide him. And now, as I look at his site, and that's one of the reasons why I want to do a podcast with him, I'm seeing something that came from this to this all through the minutia of plugging and connecting dots. And
Not
so
only that,
seeing
you
us as a
just
hub.
shortened his learning curve
Oh,
probably
can
like
you imagine?
drastically,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that
I
could
mean,
have
I
taken
think
him
he
years.
saw the investment for sure.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
been ROI'd. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, but it's great having that content, coming from the Leads Council. I really truly think that the Leads Council should be the engine for that sort of thing. I
Mm.
mean, lead generation world, I mean, I do the podcast, and that's more a personal thing. I just like to do it. And of course, we have content out there. But I don't know. I just feel like the Leads Council is sort of should be the hub of all the experts and the leaders in the space, you know. And the engine that drives this industry should, I think, be the Leads Council, not necessarily a conference.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that, I'll try to live up to that as much as I can. It's a 7 day a week, get up early and go to bed late type thing. You and I know we've texted and emailed at, ungodly times of the day and night just because we're connected and
Yeah.
we know that, we're passionate enough about this that it's not a disruption in our personal lives. And so I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Good up, man. Good up.
Well, Michael Ferree, Royal Ranger, Michael Ferree,
I think it was something
please,
like
dear
this.
God, if you
I think there
have
was like
a
I think
picture of that, I definitely want to see a Royal Ranger picture.
that'd be funny. I bet my mom has something laying around.
Man, look for it. Look for it. I'll make sure that we put
Actually,
that to good
you're the
use.
last person I'm gonna give a childhood photo of or even let me in my house.
All right, Joe
I've seen
Listowski.
what
I'm
you've
very
done.
sorry about that. Don't
That's a
invite
little
me
bit of
to a
inside
50th birthday
baseball,
party,
but
all right?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah. A little.
man. Well, dude, man, look, now we're de-evolving this conversation from such a good start.
That's okay.
Man, dude, look, I certainly appreciate your time. This has been a pleasure for me. I knew it would be so easy to interview somebody that just is really doing things for the right reasons. So, Mike, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time, and you're welcome anytime to jump on these and update it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, bro. See ya.